Now we're live. Okay. Welcome to Session 2, Episode 2 of The Writer's Room with me and Michael. We obviously have not written anything yet, but today, that's the goal, I think, is that we start writing something on here. Something. We decide, we make some decisions, we choose some choosings, and we start to write a movie. So I'm going to get something to write with. My directorial garb. I need my sunglasses. Okay. So we did not do any research. Is the also the update is that no movies were watched between last Friday and today.
Really?
No, okay, that's not true. I watched half of A Serious Man. I did.
Oh, okay.
But that's it.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know. It was okay. It was, I mean, I only watched half of it. I got too tired, but it was pretty good. I think I wasn't prepared for it to be in the 60s. I thought it was a modern situation, but it's very funny. Yeah. Crazy. Really good. The only other thing that I thought about, we were talking about magical realism, and I realized I forgot how much I love It's a Wonderful Life, and was thinking about the structure of that movie, and I was like, damn, the whole thing, like the whole meat of the movie is like the last 20 minutes. Like everything important, it's all about like the lead up, everything important that's like the craziness of it is about the end. And so I thought, okay, that's like a way to structure a movie. That's interesting that I've forgot about. Right.
What got you thinking about It's a Wonderful Life?
Just that thing, every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. And so I literally think that every time I hear like a little bell or something on the street. I think I was like riding my bike somewhere and heard a bell and was like, oh, I love It's a Wonderful Life. Oh, there's also the new Lucy Dacus album. She like mentions it. So,
Who?
Yeah.
Check.
There's
Who?
that.
I don't know who that is.
Lucy Dacus is a musician.
Fill me in.
She's friends with Phoebe Bridgers and what's her name? They have Boy
Oh, my
Genius
favorite.
together, right? Michael knows so much about Phoebe Bridgers. Where's the other camera so that I'm not the only one on camera? Is
It's
that
right
one
here. I'm
broken
turning
still?
it on.
Okay,
So
it's coming to life.
yeah, it's coming to life.
Cool. So I'm just going to write, just kind of small, It's a Wonderful Life, because it is. We just remember that that exists. But that's also, I was thinking about Matt's friend Puck was telling us about his neighbor, who is an artist. I think both of these people are artists. And they wrote a book for their kid. This couple wrote a book
Oh, that's
that
cute.
would basically, yeah, it would like make magical things come true in this kid's life, which is crazy.
Okay, hold
but
on.
Very
There we
interesting.
go. That's a little
Did we
better.
like this? Okay. So
Explain. Break this down for us.
it would be just like, oh, there's a story about, I think it was maybe he was the main character, and then it would be like, oh, there's a secret door in this boy's house, and he, is gonna find it on his 9th birthday or something, and then it was real, and they would like sort of guide him through all these tricks that they were also constructing in real life. So the book would predict and mimic his real life, and there was a sort of alternate universe character of himself.
Unreal.
Crazy. This is also freaky.
Dedicated parenting.
And we were basically debating, like, how much would that fuck you up as a child, and, like, would that make you believe that there's more magic in the world maybe than there is, or is that true? Do you want your kid to believe that?
Yeah.
Which is kind of awesome.
Well, isn't it all just a matter of belief, though, how much magic is in the world?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So maybe it makes him confront that in a special way. But I thought that was really cool. It's like, it's a whole setup of very dedicated parents.
That is very dedicated.
So.
Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, how far can we walk? That's
Here
gone.
we are. Ta-da.
Ta-da. Okay.
Okay, let's get things rolling.
It's very
So
bright.
last week, I think this week we want to actually start kind of outlining
Yes.
what this movie is going to look like. We can think of some settings, some characters, things like that. Am I in the picture?
There you are.
Get out of here. Cheers. Yeah, we can start doing a rough outline. Let's do a tally of,
Okay.
take stock of the media we consumed since last time. I watched some of The Last Waltz again. Have you ever
Okay.
seen that? It's boomer shit, for sure.
Okay.
It's the last concert of the band.
Whoa.
Levon
okay.
Helms, and
Yes.
and it's incredibly cinematic. It's like the most like cinematic concert movie ever. It's very
Wow.
beautiful. So it has all these gorgeous like tracking shots and zooms. It's all shot on
Nice.
film, and it's pretty.
Oh, you did
But-
tell me about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also, I don't think
It's also
it'll be
what?
any. It'll serve like as a inspiration point, but
that's okay.
it's a great name.
True.
So
And also,
I think
there's
it's
always
important to think about how a name can really be a big part of the legacy of a work. There we go.
There we go.
Boom.
Yes,
The
and it
Last
has
Waltz.
to be. Like, It's a Wonderful Life is a lot to say. It's kind of annoying
Yeah.
to say that every time.
The
Yeah.
Last Waltz is very elegant.
That's very nice. But also, inspiration can be in other ways. That, like, you said you loved the cinematography. That's something to draw from.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Not
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
what it's about, or like
Yeah.
just
But it's cool because it's like
themes of
it's a concert movie, but it's shot like cinema.
Oh.
Cinematic. Yeah.
Have you seen the Questlove documentary? What's that called?
Oh, Summer of Soul.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it good?
Yes.
You liked it?
It's great because
Okay.
it's all just concert footage too.
Right.
Again, that's like,
Right.
oh yeah, Martin Scorsese directed The Last Waltz.
Ah.
That's why it's like that. That makes sense. I just watched the concert parts. There's like
Okay.
documentary footage as well, but I just watched them
We
playing music.
cut there.
And
Fun.
Levon Helms is like, playing drums and singing, which is, I kind of forgot about that. And it's
That's a
very
crazy
weird
thing
to see.
Yeah. A really
Not-
impressive skill that I wish I
Very
had.
impressive skill. Okay.
We have that.
What should we get to next? Are we going to stick with our theme from last time that we were talking about?
Our food dystopia?
Our sci-fi, science fiction,
Our subtle sci-fi?
subtle sci-fi, yeah.
Near future.
Near
Food
future. Here, let's
dystopia.
put that in the middle. Why not?
Okay.
Near future, light, sci-fi.
There's no T.
Thank you. Food.
Dystopia.
It has a nice ring to it, right? There we go. Ta-da!
Amazing.
Okay. And didn't do any more research about
Nope.
about that,
Nope.
but I did recently read this novella called The Drought
Bye.
by Mr. J.G. Ballard.
Ah.
Yeah. He is, I haven't really read much of his work, but there's some people out there that are, you know, very fond of him.
Yeah, I haven't read anything. But.
Yeah, he's one of those sci-fi writers that I think is beloved by the kind of like critical theory set crowd. Type of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
The thing, I just actually started reading Ada again, the Nabokov novel, which is like 700 pages.
I read that.
Because it's 2 parts, and I got halfway through, and then I stopped, and I just dove back in, and it's very crazy. It's really good. It's beautiful.
Is it dystopic at all?
I literally always forget this. Yes, it's an alternate universe where Russia conquered a lot of North America and like owns Canada.
Whoa.
And then there's also an awareness of our worlds, which they call Terra, and people aren't really sure if it's like heaven or hell or an alternate universe, like, but they're like they know about it, or there's some people that discredit it, and some people that are like, this is the reality, which is crazy that that's like part of. I mean, there's also like a whole incest like storyline, and then also this was part of it. That this is how the world works. It's crazy. It's very cool. And it takes place in, I think right now we're in like 1918 or something.
Okay.
So, and it's these people's whole lives.
Cool.
But yeah, so I like the subtlety of it. Some kind of like implied sci-fi, implied, like you have to catch it is a nice thing.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's not like it's not flying cars.
No.
But
No. We don't want Blade
Basically,
Runner.
I guess that's our delineation.
Right.
Anyway, but the reason I brought up
the
drought is because it involves food.
Oh yeah, describe
a drought.
this.
So that's it's short. Honestly, wasn't crazy about it. I mean, it was decent. It was entertaining. It had a very nice cover. That's kind of why I bought it, because it was like a cute little, like pulpy looking paperback.
Love.
That camera's probably off.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think it is.
Hit the red button.
Thank you.
And it'll come back to life.
Amazing. Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, look at that, the blue cast. So it takes place in a near future in, I think, like the Northeast, and it's stopped raining. There's no water, and it's basically kind of follows these characters through like a decade of drought.
Wow.
As it gets worse and worse, and it goes from kind of like very recently like post-drought, where it's this guy, it mostly centers around this doctor and the people that live in his town. He's living on a houseboat, but the river's drying up. Everyone's going to the coast. And then the end of the novella takes place, the end, they go back to the town, but a big part of it takes place on the coast, which is the only place that, you know, it seems like civilization has survived, and they've made this very kind of like ramshackle civilization where they desalinate salt water
to drink it.
But it's really laborious. It's basically this like hard scrabble existence, as you imagine like a dystopia would be, right? Mm-hmm. So
what did you call it? The boar?
Hard scrabble.
No, the boar or something?
The what?
Whatever. I don't know what you said.
Huh? In reference to what? That I just
It's really the blank.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I don't remember.
They're
living on the coast.
Okay.
That's what the people are. So you have kind of like, and we'll just have our elements. So you have like relocation is one element of dystopia. And then adaptation, which, man, I'm not doing well today. And then you also have the labor of dystopia, right? So these people, once you get to this point where it hasn't rained in a decade, basically the life of the people that live on the coast is completely dedicated solely to basically making drinkable water.
Wow.
And so the doctor is kind of, he's like an outcast from the small society that exists on the coast of like a few hundred people. And the interesting aspect, though, where it comes into food is that they basically have, and this reminded me of actually Assateague Island, where we were, I don't know, 2 months ago?
Months ago.
When was that? Jesus.
Oh, no.
Is that everyone has incredibly high salt diets.
Oh.
And there's always a lot of kind of like there's always good like kind of anatomical descriptions in Ballard. I think people like him because he's, you know, has like weird kind of strange depictions of like changing bodies, but they, like the horses on Assateague Island,
which I am now depicting.
Yeah, they're really salt-heavy diets make everyone really bloated. So there's a description of how everyone's kind of become like swollen because they have so much salt.
That's crazy, but that's what
yeah, and it was and it was a little throwaway description, but I was like, well, I wouldn't even know that was the case unless I had just been on this island full of horses with salt-heavy diets who look very bloated.
Damn.
So then you have also, you know, you have changing diets.
I feel like in a lot of sci-fi, that's like talked about as evolution almost, like a really sped up. Like people are always interested in like how fast can people change their appearance, and I think that people talk about a lot about that with obesity too. Of like, are we becoming a new species or something in this way that we've like affected our own anatomy through our own like food system so much that we will like be changed forever or something? Or I like to think about like, when I was little, I was like, oh, I really hope that I have webbed hands one day. You know, in this sort of like false evolutionary equivalency thing. I feel like that happens in sci-fi a lot, and that's always interesting. Yeah, about how it's also real. You know, how people talk about that.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds good to me.
Changing diets, changing bodies. That sounds like a kid's book about like sex.
Yeah, it does.
Obviously. Changing
I'm going to check
yourself.
the audio real quick. But you want to add some notes now?
Sure.
So
well, I feel like we have to stop. We have to stop just like shooting the shit.
Okay. Yeah. True, we do. Let's start working. So, what will be the setting? What are we thinking? Are we thinking like urban, rural? Is it a collapsed city? Is it kind
just
of like
set it on Assateague Island? What if we
on
just
Assateague Island?
And then you can
actually,
literally
that's a
film
really
it
good
there.
idea.
Okay.
Okay, so it's
setting, location.
It's set on a coastal island in the northeast.
Okay.
Perfect.
A beautiful, beautiful place between Maryland and Virginia, not Delaware. And I think, an evocative place because it's got all the dunes, grasses, sand, weird trees. It feels sort of like an alien planet.
Yeah, it already feels a little alien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that mic working?
It is. Everything's working.
Sweet.
I just was double checking.
Okay. So I guess then the question is, who are the people and why have they relocated? Because nobody lives on Assateague Island right now. It's like park rangers and horses and birds. So the question is, why are there people living there and how did they get there? And what is their labor? So we can go through all the steps. And then how do they adapt, I guess?
Yeah.
What is their adaptation to the situation? So we could start with, what's the food dystopia? What's the thing that has changed? Or what's the thing that's real that we want to pull out and say, like, this is the hinge point?
Well, I think, again, I think this idea is interesting because it's you know, like kind of, I think the best sci-fi, it's just a mild extrapolation from the present in terms of, you know, what could be possible very soon. Right? And also, I mean, we just came out of a year of, I think, the first time anyone at our age has experienced shortages of anything, really.
True.
Right? Like, think about that. Like, that's been kind of the
norm.
Anyone
our class and age.
Yes. But, just in terms of, though, I mean, not even just like there not being stuff on the shelves, you know?
Right. Like, you literally walk into the store and everything
is like, I mean, and that, like, I think that's across the board something that, again, even I think you know, that is a thing that I think people talk about when you are talking about class is that, you know, and you're talking about food too in particular, is that even kind of people that really like the bottom rungs of society in the U.S. have access to like a massive amount of like very shitty, processed, unhealthy food, but still like there's massive amounts of food, and because it's just we produce so much, and we're fine with throwing away so much, so that the shelves for I think our entire lives, the shelves have always been stocked.
Yes.
Right? There's never been, of course, people in other countries, people in like war zones, that's a very common experience for the shelves to be empty, basically, places that are much more deprived. But in the U.S., like by and large, the shelves have always been stocked. And I think for the first time,
metaphorically,
the shelves were not stocked, right? Yeah. I mean, particularly like paper products. But I remember that last year there being a lot of talk about like supply chain disruption, things like that.
That was new, because I feel like every single like superstorm, whatever, there's always news stories where they film that, where it's like, oh my gosh, everybody bought all the things in the supermarket.
Yeah.
But this time it was like, and then there is not any more actually hiding somewhere.
That's what it is.
Which is the
that's
difference.
What it is. Yeah. So the shelves will be. The shelves have been empty before, but then there's a massive incentive and a massive stock available to restock them.
But this
and
time
so for once, it was like truly, there was no way to get stuff back on there.
Right.
And so what happens when that situation becomes much more prolonged and much more pronounced, right? So I think we can talk about.
And that's such an evocative image too, to walk into like a huge, very air-conditioned grocery store where there's nothing, where it's just like white shelves.
Empty shelves.
Scary. Lights flickering. Kind of like horror movie aspect. To that, we would associate. But I guess, what's the disruption?
Well,
I guess it's funny. I guess you're saying it's funny to write a dystopia in what feels like the wake of a dystopia. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, the COVID year was like whatever the hardest thing," but it's also like, I don't know really how to think about it anymore if we're not out of the woods yet, like that's a funny place to be writing from, is like we're in a version of what we're going to be making, but it's going to be maybe a little bit worse in this movie or something. But I don't want the issue to be COVID. I feel like it's like,
not at all, no.
But we are, maybe to say we are making a COVID movie kind of regardless of what happens, or what it actually is.
And it's also like, again, the deprivation, and again, it varies across class lines, but the deprivation that we've experienced, I'd say there's definitely been maybe psychological dystopia that people like us have experienced, but it hasn't really hit the material dystopia, which again is the worst conditions that we've seen from COVID in terms of, lack of stuff is still nothing close to what people experience in, again, like a war zone, or, I mean, plenty of countries in peacetime that are just really fucking poor.
Right.
And have trouble getting stuff anyway. So I think, it's and that's why, again, I think generally dystopias tend to be set in first world countries, right?
Right. Well, because that's where you see the most exactly. It's about losing that.
So it's about the anxiety of the upper classes who have comfortable lives and suddenly have to face discomfort. But also that's where you get the most drastic shift too, right? Where you can really drive home the point. Because again, it's like, I mean, if you set dystopia in like a war-torn region of Ethiopia or something, it's like it's already making a documentary. Yeah.
Or no, that like people have lives within that totally and are like trying to go about their daily shit. Well,
that's an interesting thing that that I guess I don't know, that we could take inspiration from, but that people do people continue to lead like as normal a life as possible within war zones.
As comfortable as they can.
It's not like those places just empty out. So there are again, I think that's one way we can think about it, is that there are already lots of people that are living in our idea of a dystopia. That's just totally normal life for them.
I also was thinking about, as we were talking about like bodegas and stuff, like personal dystopias, and I feel like I have a lot of interesting encounters in bodegas with people who are searching for their next fix or whatever and are freaking out, and it's like they are living an alternate reality from me in this place that feels very empty to them because it doesn't have what they want. But I'm like, I'm here and I got my iced tea and that's what I wanted. Right. So it's like an interesting you could think about like maybe the people in our movie are not actually maybe it's not a dystopia at all, but it's a dystopia for them for some reason. And it's
Okay.
like an isolated situation
Yeah.
where it's like you don't really maybe need to be doing this, or maybe you do, you think you do or something. That's crazy to me. I don't know. But I still don't know what the scenario is. Yeah. But we could have some kind of like
We can think that through.
personal
Personal
dystopia.
versus societal.
Yeah. Right, and people experience crazy shit all the time.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is, not something other people do. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so we're on an island.
We're
I
on
think
an
an island
island.
is a good location because
It's a
then you
big
also
island.
have kind of you can kind of like a cloistered mini society.
Right.
And I think especially, so are we thinking? I think like what level of collapse are we imagining here? Are we imagining just like our world? We still have smartphones and everything. There's just less food on the shelves, or is it like total like telecommunications are gone? Technology
Yeah.
has reverted to pre-industrial levels. I mean, that's kind of
I feel like that's
the most
more
dramatic.
fun, but
Yeah,
it's also
yeah.
the hardest to explain.
I mean, again, but you just need
it's-
time.
Right,
It could be that
right.
probably wouldn't happen in a decade, but maybe in like 100 years,
Right.
you'd be back at that point, right?
Right. We could, or there's some kind of natural disaster that causes that.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. If we're talking about supply chain stuff, oh wait, there's a
I was like,
Sharpie
what do you
here.
want?
There's a Sharpie here. Supply chain disruption, empty shelves. Well, that can come from disruption of stable environmental conditions. So disruption of growing seasons, changing of growing seasons. And that's, I think, something that's really interesting to think about then, is like, if we have basically like a total, if, climate changes, right? What is the actual reality of that? Like, what if a region that was formerly very arid becomes miraculously somehow becomes like an Eden because suddenly it's like covered in rain, or someplace becomes like more bountiful, or someplace that was, maybe like northern climates become more temperate and more tropical, and you can suddenly
like
grow
flipping and
watermelons
switching
in
and-
Maine or
right,
something.
right.
Yeah.
That's
Or
interesting.
like pineapples or stuff like that, right? So you could have a whole kind of like, you could have a whole like geographic power shift. Geographic power shift as a result of climate change, where you have, again, places that were maybe once like the, like places like the areas in California where there's like massive amounts of agriculture, become less productive, and then places that were less productive now somehow become more productive, or places that were maybe not economically viable to be centers of like agricultural production become those, That's cool. Yeah, so I think an interesting, we should start thinking about kind of the geography and the distribution of power in this world, right? So I think anyone who's living on an island is going to be not in a good place. So I think
But if this is your concept, maybe suddenly it's like weirdly great to be on this marshland place.
it could be. So I guess then we want to describe, are these people like, if we are depicting a dystopia and we're depicting kind of like the kind of like harsh reality of a dystopia, I think then in that case it would be interesting to have people that are kind of like existing on the fringes of this new world and are experiencing, so you can really, through telling their stories, you can really illustrate kind of the deprivation of this world, right?
Yeah.
Because they're kind of like,
that's the whole thing.
they have it the hardest. And again, if they're on an island, maybe it's like that they have really unhealthy diets that they've been reduced to eating, where it's just like, really they're just eating kelp. Maybe that's it.
Right.
Maybe that's like
Pickleweed.
all there is to eat is kelp.
No, but then maybe there's still like an overclass that's like, no, this is the next best fad of like, like Mediterranean. Get skinny. And then there's people that get attracted to the island.
Yes. I like where this is going. I think, okay, so this could be about food production. That could be a central aspect of it.
Oh, and so maybe it's like these people's rise to prosperity, actually.
Yes.
Through having their kelp farms and their fucking pickleweed farms or whatever, which is like, they basically tap into the like millennial scheme branding of like these people that still care about that stuff, even in the dystopia, and they fool them. But they like make this con, basically.
Okay, so I'm having an idea here.
Okay.
So we have rise to prosperity through changing consumer tastes, right? So.
But it's not just changing. It's like that's manufactured. They have to convince people that they want what they have.
Well, so I'm imagining a more geographically isolated future, right? So
right, because we have no telecommunications anymore.
Yeah,
right.
maybe. It could be. So it could be like, you have to go on the Silk Road to get from, say, the Great Lakes to the East Coast. So that's what I'm thinking. That we've got the Midwest is the new breadbasket of the United States, or the garden.
Is it
the
not?
salad bowl or whatever? But that's where like that is kind of the only really arable land left. That it's become this like really bountiful Eden, and it's kind of like basically the only fragments of like our current kind of like hyper-consumerist capitalist society that only exists within kind of like the Confederation of Midwestern States.
Okay.
Which has become kind of like its own nation, basically.
Okay.
You
don't want to push this further west? You don't want to make this weirder by putting it in like Nevada or something?
A rump state. That's a word I just...
What does that mean?
It means it's the a fragment of like a former much greater, grander country that's still around.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
You learn something. Every day.
Yeah. Because so this doesn't have to necessarily be the situation, but what I'm thinking is that we have
concept
Midwest, and that's where there's like, and where kind of our current consumer habits and tastes still exist.
Okay.
So that's where the old world still exists. And just consumerism exists. It hasn't degraded to like bartering.
Okay.
Or,
and you can have your full shelves, your stock shelves are still there. Okay.
Or at least an approximation of that.
Okay.
So they're kind of like they've made, and maybe it's like, a very like walled off society. Maybe it's very authoritarian. You know, and in dystopia, usually that's kind of what we imagine.
I feel like this is like the dystopia within the dystopia.
Yeah,
it's like that's like,
and
it's not really even about that. Sorry. But I feel like I like that it's not really even about that.
Yeah.
That it's like, we know this exists.
We know it exists, but this is not what's happening, because we are on the coast.
Fringe land.
Yeah. Which is fringe, new world. So this is where society has kind of had to, and not even like society has reconstituted itself, where like a new society has formed, new rules have been written, kind of new practices have developed. And it could be about what's happening is that this link, so maybe there are no telecommunications. Just let's...
Right, but then how do they know about each other? They have a connection, these two places.
Because the connection has just been reestablished now after maybe like
that's cool,
decades and decades of total disconnect and separation. Now kind of like they've managed the wealthy people in like the Great Lakes or whatever, that society has managed now, because maybe they've now grown to a point, or they were never able to abandon our current tendencies of overconsumption.
Yes.
So now they're already kind of pushing the limits.
It's just the cycle has
Exactly.
re-upped
The
itself.
cycle
Yeah.
is
yeah.
repeating itself at a smaller scale, in a
Right.
smaller place. But we never really this the vestige of our old world never really managed to transcend any of our current problems, right?
Right.
And so they've started to kind of like go out in search of new stuff.
Right.
to
They're finally
consume.
like,
They
we
need
can't
more.
we can't do this anymore. in our-
Yeah. So you have maybe a sense of exploration, a sense of colonialism.
You might say
that's,
exceptionalism.
Yeah, that's driven by a desire for kind of novelty and a desire
right.
for just more stuff, right?
As it is now.
Whereas then you have the people who are living in the coastal world who have basically adapted to a life that is completely centered around just like pure necessity.
Right.
Like, because that's the only thing you can focus on. There's nothing else that you can really
And sort of
that can
like
really occupy your time.
communality out of survival.
Yeah,
sort of,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So we have, so this is, let's say, this is old world and all the things that entails, right? And this is new world.
It already says New World.
Well, we'll just put it again, just to overemphasize, and we'll connect them too.
Great.
There we go.
So this is interesting because now, I think just those descriptions, I'm thinking about who are the characters.
Yeah.
Because that's some rich material for the people who have chosen or been pushed to live in those two locations.
Yeah,
So
no,
who are
absolutely.
they?
I think it could be interesting again to look at kind of like the actual instead of the more fantastical sci-fi element where
Yeah.
maybe it's just kind of like, things are kind of taken for the way that the world functions is kind of taken for granted, and
Yeah.
it's more just a backdrop for just like interpersonal drama.
Yeah.
It could be interesting to think of this more as kind of like a documentary of a possible future.
I like
You
that.
know?
Okay.
So
Wait, I want
again-
to write that down.
Yeah.
Where did I put? Oh, my Sharpie's over there.
So we've got
That is cool.
documentary of a possible future. So we're looking at how things are produced in this world. We're looking at the supply chains of this world, right? So maybe it's like the movie starts with the first outsiders that have been seen kind of on the coast in decades when
Yeah.
like a caravan arrives from the Great
From
Lakes
okay.
of traders who are like, we are
here
looking for stuff.
Yeah.
This is like
We heard you got stuff.
the new Silk Road, it's just
Yeah.
like they go through like Ohio and Pennsylvania down to Maryland. And
Perfect.
and then so maybe it's that on the coast, even though the society that's developed is based entirely on just necessity because there is so little, right? They've developed, their own kind of like strange cuisines that are
that's fun.
unlike anything that's ever been, I think, unlike anything that's really been,
Seen
Seen
eaten.
here.
And that's an interesting dynamic for them to show up and be like, we really need your help,
Yeah.
but also we are snobs
Yeah,
in our
yeah,
way, in our
exactly.
old way, and like that's a crazy push-pull to have. Like
Yeah.
we want it, but we really don't, but we have to.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like
yeah.
and I wonder how those people would feel
Yeah.
about that.
You know what the big division could be, honestly? If you're thinking about, so in this future, it's a future of hyper-local production. So this is
Right.
there's no globalization. There's at all in
Goodbye,
this world.
globalization.
Yeah. Everything is...
That's hard to reverse, Jesus.
Well, but it would have
it's
to be
also
if you
not
had
if
no
you-
means
right,
to
if you
continue
can't.
it, too. So
Right.
maybe let's say there's no telecommunications.
But there's also no transportation.
There's also no gas.
Ah.
There we go.
Okay.
See, now we're
No
creating the
fossil
conditions.
fuels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we're creating the condition.
Okay.
Or maybe there is, and it's like Mad Max, though, where
Right.
it's like incredibly
So hard to
rare.
get. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
That it's only, maybe it's gotten to a point even where it's like, they are lacking all that stuff here, but then for whatever reason, maybe there's like, I don't know, you could imagine some sort of like if there's no combustion engines anymore, but there's still gasoline, some like, I don't know, some
Yeah,
sort of
they
like
might-
cult that's grown around like, this is again too Mad Max, but it could be like, you know, ritual consumption of gasoline or
Right.
something. Could
Whatever.
be like a part of it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
There's all
Whatever.
little, you could go down so many rabbit holes.
Yeah. But so the big dividing line here, where we get into the food aspect of this again, could be, again, if you've got hyper-local production,
I'm waiting. What is it?
salt.
What about it?
That's
How you make
what
salt?
that's what they have.
That they want.
The only thing they have in excess.
Right.
And that's the thing
that's
that
what
they don't have because there's only fresh water
Right.
in the Great Lakes.
Oh, shit.
Can they? Maybe they can mine salt out there. I don't know.
Maybe they have already.
But-
It's gone. It's been decades.
Yeah.
Okay, they need salt.
And this is how we also make this kind of like, you know, also a work that's kind of, you know, tied into the actual history of the world, because salt
Right.
was like one of the great drivers of trade in
Did
like
you read
the
that book?
pre-industrialized, pre-globalized world. I read a little bit of it.
I did not, but I remember
yeah.
that book.
I own it. I own it.
We
I
should
read,
read- okay,
like, a
that's some
chapter.
fucking
Oh
research.
yeah, let's
Just
read.
read the-
Let's
let's read
read
salt.
some salt. I
Okay.
should have brought that. So we can look at
Now
kind
we
of
know.
how the history of salt drove trade
Yes.
in our world, to kind of look at how it's driving trade
Extrapolate.
and everything in this world.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, I like it. Fantastic. Oh, no, I can. Okay, I'm good.
You good?
I got another half an hour.
You got to bounce at 12:30.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So let's start
Okay.
thinking about. I'm gonna grab the other camera because we got to switch things up visually
Yeah.
a little bit.
This is what we have so far. Characters is still looking a little blank.
Characters is looking a little blank.
Because I
yeah.
feel like this, I mean, technically, this movie would have so many people in it. Like, if you know, if you were constructing whole societies, but
Yeah.
I feel like there should be like 4 characters. I think in order, to show the slice of life thing, it's just like, what is the immediate world
Mhm.
of these people?
Yeah. So, and also, what are the diets of these people?
Yeah.
That's something we need to think
I
about too, right?
We have to figure out who they are, though.
Yeah. True. Okay. So I think we
Let's see.
have there should be characters from both sides, right?
Right. Well,
So
it's
we
the
have-
meeting point is the, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we showing this world at all? Or are they
I
just
think-
showing up and they can just talk about it?
I think it's
Okay.
purely through
Okay.
kind of
It's just
dialogue and
this
description.
Is ours, where
yeah.
we are.
The
Okay.
new world,
Okay.
the coastal world is our world. The lake
Okay.
world is not. That's just something that, and again, the people on the coast have no idea. They've just kind of assumed that they're the last people left, and that this is how
Yeah.
just the world is now. Yeah.
Lake world and
Sea world.
Sea world.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, they're gonna be shocked when the lake people arrive. I mean, also there's a really fun the whole nautical aspect of this is cool too. Like, I'm sure that they have all kinds of different boats and fishing gear and lots of that going on. And they're probably preserving all their shit in salt. That sounds really good. But I guess if they're arriving and saying like, we want this thing, is your idea that there's like figures who are responsible for the salt? Or is it just like, every
Yes.
family makes their own salt?
No, I think so. I think it's kind of like a feudalistic.
Okay.
I don't know.
There's salt lords.
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
So then I feel like then one of them has to be the character, you know? Like
Yeah,
the
we should
person, like
have-
the old guy who's like, I have been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah,
maybe,
and
or
it could be
something.
a society that's also kind of like, well, or it could be a thing that they don't value salt at all.
Because they have too much of it.
They have too
Right.
much of it, so it's kind of
Right.
like a problem. So again, to steal an idea from
Ah.
Ballard, they could get all their water from desalination, and then salt is the byproduct.
And
they're
it's
"What
almost
the
like you're
fuck
like
do we
the
do with all
garbage
this
man.
salt?"
If you're the salt guy,
Yes,
you're like, that's
exactly.
a shitty
Okay,
job.
No, write that down. That's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the salt, the person who has to like get rid of the salt, that's kind of the lowest rung of society. The people who deal with salt,
Yeah. Because
because
there's
it's like the bane
excess.
of everyone's existence.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay. So we like that. Yeah, we're not writing this in a bubble or a vacuum. Maybe in a bubble, but not in a vacuum. Ooh. And then the salt garbage man has an apprentice, of course, because that's how that works in like every feudal situation. Okay.
The scents are powerful here.
What are you smelling?
Just Morimoto. Just fried fish
Yeah.
and just like sauce. Like it smells like soy sauce and like
Sauce.
deep fried.
It smells like sauce. What are you seeing?
Jen said it's kind of like the bananas in 100 Years of Solitude.
I have not read that.
I have, but I don't remember.
There being bananas involved?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe. But there is, yeah, there's like a fruit. Yeah. There's like a,
We'll have
I
to
don't know.
look
I remember
into
something
it.
about, there's definitely,
Okay. Thank you,
fruit.
Jen.
yeah, thank you.
We'll do our
There's
research.
some fruit in there for sure. We'll do our research, yeah. I don't
Okay.
remember anything about that book except the person like floats away. Yeah.
So, okay, we have, who are the people arriving from the new place? Are they like, they're like the capitalist emissaries chosen by a government, or on their own volition they're like, this is our venture to sort of save our city?
So is it,
Is
yeah.
it a company, or is it like who, you know,
Is it
who
like
sent
Christopher Columbus, or is
Right.
it like the Silk Road, where it's just like
Right.
we got this far just because we want to see like how far, you know, just looking
Is that really
the
how
search
the
for new
Silk
markets.
Really? I guess like see what's out there.
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, and again, that's I don't think to see what's out there as much as just like you have something, say silk, which couldn't be produced in Europe, right?
Right.
Because China had a monopoly on silkworms.
Right.
So you go as far as possible because you know the farther away we get from where this is common, you know.
The less likely it'll be for somebody to care. That
Well,
I'm
no, the
doing
higher
that.
value it'll have because it literally
you
could
sell it.
never
Okay.
exist. You know, the
Right.
further away you get, the less possibility there is
the
that anyone
cooler
could
it
have
is.
that. Exactly. Yeah, the more of
Yeah.
a premium there is
Right.
on the stuff. And that's another interesting detail. This is funny. I was reading about just some random bullshit on Wikipedia, but there were, I think, 2 Byzantine monks in like the 13th century who went to China and stole silkworms and smuggled them all the way back to the West,
Wow.
and then created like a Byzantine silk industry.
They're like, we're
Yeah.
gonna bust this monopoly. And
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Just
they
with-
didn't get. And I guess nobody caught them.
No, and they brought it back, and then there was a massive Western silk industry that developed out of that.
Shit.
Yeah. Maybe it was earlier than that. I don't know. Don't quote me. But it was 2
Okay.
monks. I know that.
That's
So
cool.
that's kind of cool.
The
Yeah.
church always has its hands
Yeah.
in everything.
So they could even be religious emissaries too. There could
Actually,
be a
that
religious
makes the most
aspect.
sense.
Yeah. That they're
Yeah.
kind of just like driven by faith that they like need to. Or
Yeah.
it could literally be a thing of they're just like the cultural memory of like seasoned food is enough to because you know that's
yeah.
what also drove so much exploration. Again, if we're just thinking like about the past to inform, we're thinking about our current past to inform our fictional future.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the motivations might be just the same as they've always been.
I
you
would
know?
expect that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the
So
emissaries.
maybe there's also maybe the agriculture of the coast is also like the only things they can grow are like, you know, the kind of stuff that you could grow in a desert. So like, or in an arid region, like peppers, right?
Yeah.
So you have their cuisine is very kind of like harsh and uninviting to them, and yet it's like but I think then there's an interesting aspect of like the memory of the old world could
These
be the
people's
motivation.
memory.
Everyone's memory.
Oh, of like this.
Could be the motivation.
this
Like
world.
these
Yeah.
people, I
Yeah.
think, have they have had to adapt, and they've been in such a harsher dystopia that they have kind of, you know, transcended into the new world, right? Whereas
Yeah.
in the Midwestern area, the lake world, they've retained enough of kind of our world as it exists now.
Yeah.
That they still have the memory of, you know, the better times
And they're
of how things used to work,
grasping
right?
onto it.
And they're
Like, we
grasping
wanna
onto that,
retain
and they're trying
this.
to
Yeah.
recreate it in any way they can.
Right.
And so maybe like transnational trade is a part of also kind of like
That's interesting.
yeah,
Yes.
or like, you know,
Maintaining
acting on
that.
memory and like maintaining
Right.
some
Which
semblance.
would make sense. That's
Yeah.
how it functions.
Yeah. So we've got our
Okay.
salt garbage men, and then we've got, I think these should be, we've got the people that are kind of and maybe like kelp farmers too.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, we're focusing on.
Again, we're focusing on the
specific
food.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it could also be like vignettes. So we could see kind of like how everyone's lives,
Oh.
a bunch of different people in this society, how their lives are affected by the arrival and the awareness
Right,
that something
right.
that they see no value in is
valuable.
valuable.
Suddenly to that.
Is
yeah,
valuable.
To other people.
You know? Again, like, you know, conquistadors coming to South America and being like, we want gold because we use it as currency, and then it's
Right.
just like, oh, well, you know, the people that live there are like, well, we don't, and there's just like a
Right,
disconnect over how they
What
view
it's
this
for.
like natural resource. Yeah. So maybe even salt is currency in the New World, because it was once upon a time as well. Like Roman legionnaires were paid in salt.
Oh right.
Like
'Cause
once
yeah.
upon a time, yeah, because it was
Yeah,
like
you
so
need that.
highly valued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my other question out of that is like, are they trying to kill these people? Like, what kind of mission? You know?
Yeah.
Like, how much do they care? Maybe, or like, what are they willing to do
Yeah.
to get
I
the
think-
salt? How
I think
scary
s-
is this?
So I think okay, the central conflict of this then should be the culture shock of these two societies kind of encountering. And I
Yeah.
think maybe one thing is that it could kind of like awaken memories of the old world and the coastal people, where they're like, wait, like
Right.
the old people. Obviously, there'll be plenty of
Right.
people who've only
Lived
all they know is the
on the
dystopia,
island,
the younger
yeah.
people. But the older people maybe are like, wait, I remember how things used to be.
Twinkies.
Like,
Whoa.
holy shit, yeah.
Right,
Or just
yeah.
like fruit. you
Right. At
know?
all? Yeah.
Yeah, like an apple.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they sort of are. They can manipulate people that way, where it's
Yeah.
like, look, we still have this.
Yeah, exactly,
somehow, right,
exactly.
but
So
we
let's
can
write that
pay
down.
you and-
They have some sort of like they have material technological stuff that is like totally commonplace for them.
Right.
That again, it's the total, it's the like the relativity of what these two societies value.
Right.
That
right.
creates kind of like
That's important. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot of cultural relativity going on where, you know.
Of value, sort of like values and valuables.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Coming out of between there. I guess it doesn't matter specifically when this is, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to put like a year on it, but I think
Yeah.
it is that cutoff point is like, are there people alive who remember the old world, or are there people alive who remember like Grubhub or whatever?
I would
like
say
fucking
yes. That would be
smartphones
kind of
and shit?
fascinating.
Yeah.
I think yes.
Yeah.
So
So the coastal world there could even be maybe like, there could be aspects of like, you know, like there could be cargo cults built around kind of like memories of like old technology too.
yeah.
None of the shit works
What's
anymore.
a cargo cult?
So where you kind of like, I think it specifically comes from islands in the Pacific,
Okay.
where I want to say during World War II, the people who lived on those islands witnessed kind of like U.S. military infrastructure, like, you know, cargo being dropped by airplanes on these islands to like supply the war effort. So then when people left, they kind of developed these cults around how they kind of cult practices that developed around like, oh, well, if we do this, this, and this, then like the food is going to get dropped out of the sky, right? So they would like create like facsimiles of radios and things like that, and they would worship like airplanes. But of course, it wasn't they didn't have the technology to actually make radios. They just thought like, you know, they made an object that looked like a radio, and it was like, well, that was kind of like the extent of, I guess, the understanding of how that process worked, right? So you have kind of like a, yeah, I don't know,
In
adaptation
effigy,
to
sort of.
technology.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So where you kind of like, you worship the object because you have a like a vague understanding of what it functions and what it can do, but you have no way of actually recreating that function. You just have like the object, or, you know. So again, you have a computer that, you know, in this society maybe you have like a computer that hasn't worked in decades, it's completely broken, but just the object of, you know, the screen and the desktop and the motherboard and all that stuff is like, it awakens some sort of memory of like, but this could do things.
Right.
And like, this is
and
how,
I'm so close. If only I could, and it becomes
this
magic in that way.
This is what made kind of this is what made kind of the wondrous miracles of the old world possible. And we don't know how to recreate that, but we have an object that kind of represents that, and we know that it was kind of a means to that. So we just kind of worship the potential that's contained in the object, but we can never actually like unlock that potential. Because again, there's no electricity, there's no internet.
Right, that's what's
like that.
ironic about it, is that the actual means to that world are the bigger things, you know?
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe they do
lose.
have electricity, you know? Maybe it's like hydroelectric.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, maybe electricity still exists because that, but it's all kind of run on these like makeshift ramshackle,
like generators,
cobbled together
and
machines.
whatever.
You know, that's kind of like a classic.
I love that
classic
look.
dystopia.
Yeah.
Where again, you're kind of just like, things are chugging along, but everything's breaking down. That could be the point where we're at, where there's still some. We've got the remnants of the past. We've got the remnants of, you know, hyper-industrialized society. That some of those things are still ticking along, but they're starting to show their age. They're starting to break down.
Approaching a breaking point. Anyway, sort of, and maybe that's the like fatedness of this meeting, sort of.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good point. That maybe in the coastal area, you've got kind of like there's a sense of that things that they're on the cusp of disaster. So the new world is on the cusp.
This is going to be so fun to make.
Yeah.
Like all the little things that they have. It's going to be so cool.
Yeah.
All their devices.
The last remnants.
And maybe there's some people who are like, no, this is our new way. Like, this is going to work. This is great. And some people who are like, I have never wanted to live like this. Like, I'm sure within the new world, there's a lot of division, too, about, like, I wish I wasn't here because this sucks to live on the salt island, you know?
Yeah, the last remnants of pre-collapse technology are breaking down.
Bum, bum, bum.
And it could be also a thing where it's such a shock when the shock of the arrival of outsiders is because people have tried to leave this world and they've never come back.
Oh.
Because they've wandered out. Maybe there's no water along the way.
Yeah.
Maybe there's, you know, I don't know.
Whatever reason.
For
people
whatever reason.
who are going to attack you on the trail, etc.
Exactly.
And so they're like, oh, it's like you can't leave. They feel that they can't leave. Okay.
Yeah, they feel very trapped. Again, also because it's like such a hand-to-mouth existence. There's no excess, right?
Right.
So it's like if you stop working for a day,
you're screwed.
You're done.
Yeah.
It has to be.
You can't even pack up enough stuff to like go on a trip. Yeah. That's an amazing image of like that. Maybe that big bridge onto the island is still standing. And can you imagine somebody just like walking in the middle of that highway, just like approaching you, like two people like approaching each other on that bridge?
Enough excess. Zero.
I'm gonna draw it instead.
So we've got zero excess, Stop working, you die. And then we've got enough excess to make exploration possible. Yeah, I mean that could very easily just be opening shot.
Sure.
Long,
Yeah.
static shot of a bridge. You've got people in the foreground who are kind of going around, going about their just like whatever they have to do in a day. Maybe there's something on the bridge. Maybe there's some sort of like, I don't know. There's people on the bridge just doing the things that they're always doing. And then the shock of seeing someone approaching from the distance. And slowly they get closer to the camera, So really, really long static shot of just someone coming down.
I mean, it'd be really cool if if we could do that. Like literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
So I think really symmetrical.
Yeah.
With I think.
But that's us on a boat in the water. Like
this is
I
number
don't know
one.
if we can actually do that.
Well, I think this is number one.
Yeah.
Where you have
somebody's
figure approaching.
Yeah.
From the distance, and
Yeah.
they become larger as they approach, and then you have figures in the foreground who are just kind of going
that
about.
they're doing their kelp thing. Yeah.
Going about their daily activity. Maybe they're pulling up like traps off the bridge or something. You know, they're fishing.
Right. Because then it's like the disruption is like they go silent.
Yeah, and then they're
whatever.
going, and then you have all the activity happening in the foreground.
Right.
And then as a figure approaches from the distance, in the dead center of the screen, you have them slowly realize that something's happening.
Right.
And then number two, I think, would be you view it from the front, and then you cut to the side as the person comes.
Right.
You know, you have the the traders, the travelers on the left coming in, and then you have our salt people on the right, and then they come together.
And that's the beginning of the conflict.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So we have our opening.
Amazing.
Perfect. Opening. I'm just going to keep calling them the traders.
Okay.
Or the caravan. Let's call it the caravan.
Okay.
Okay. And what should we call it? We need the coastal people, the salt people.
The salt people?
Yeah.
Salt
whatever.
life?
We'll call them salt life. Oh,
That's
maybe that's
crazy.
the cargo cult. Yeah. They worship salt life.
Yeah.
Salt people working on the bridge. Caravan appears in the distance. And they slowly become aware of it.
I am still trying to think about literally how to do this and like keep it realistic too. And like that scene involves a lot of people potentially. No?
Yeah.
10 people at most.
Yeah.
Because I'm still like, who is in this movie? Just like anyone who wants to be.
Let's
anyone
write
we
it
can...
first.
Okay. I'm trying. It's a holistic view. Trying to keep it true.
They salt people. Okay, so we've got Salt Life, and we've got the Road Dogs. Great, and it could be like a very, like maybe it's a thing where they're also the caravan people are kind of like, you know, the people in the lake world kind of view them as crazy, and they're like, oh, like this is maybe the people have tried this before and they also have never returned. So this is kind of the first successful
it's a fluke
journey
actually
of like the post-collapse world.
Okay.
This is the first successful connection of two pockets in this post-collapse world, which I think by the end we should we'll come to realize that there's a lot of pockets.
Oh, I'm kind of assuming, that these are that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I have a question about horses. Not successful.
Are the horses still there?
I think, did they eat them all? Or are they riding them? Are they eating them and maybe also, because like if there's no gas, how are these people getting to, they're not walking, are they?
Maybe.
Maybe their horses would have died anyway.
Yeah,
I'm like, do
yeah.
they have do they have horses? I don't know.
Yeah, no, horses
That's kind
for
of
sure.
fun,
I mean,
because
that makes the most sense.
and then you can have two different kinds of. I mean, that's kind of a funny image: the real big horses and the stupid little fat horses.
Yeah, true.
But that's what's going on Assateague all the time. Anyway.
Just all the animals are dead.
Yeah.
I could also,
that's kind of more realistic, honestly. Yeah.
And like, you know, because of like over-salination, there's only like very, very kind of shitty little fish. That's all available to eat.
Maybe weird little
it's
crabs.
All just crustaceans.
Yeah.
Like fucked up little crabs.
Yeah, little mussels. And,
there's not much.
So
yeah. So I think
no dogs,
the fauna of this world is like severely depleted.
Right. Unfortunately.
But maybe they have a dog or something.
Maybe there's something where people are like, wow, I had that as a child, whatever.
Yeah, and they brought it along as like backup food.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because that's also another, I mean, again, that's another way to really highlight kind of highlight the dystopia of a place is if kind of is if the morality of the new world is also radically different from our kind of morality. Right? Again, if you're like, if people have totally become accustomed to the idea of eating dog, because it's
in
just
America,
like, that's what's around.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that could be like utterly inconceivable now, obviously. But it's like people are just like, yeah, times got tough. You know?
What are you gonna do? I mean,
what are you gonna do?
Cannibalism.
Yeah.
Concept.
Honestly, probably
has happened in the past of this.
And
maybe they're like, we don't talk about that. They're like, that was 10 years ago. And we don't do that anymore. Yeah. But we did.
Or maybe they like, you know, maybe they got like human jerky
somewhere stored in their salt cave.
Yeah, maybe.
And then maybe that really, really shocks these people.
Yeah.
And they're not okay with it, and they have a whole rift about something like that.
Maybe the moral conflict between the two worlds.
Yeah, is definitely included. Do the places have actual new names? Like, what do the people call their city, state? What, I don't know, their pockets.
Yeah.
Because I was literally just thinking, what are we going to call the movie? And I feel like...
Yeah. Salt Life.
Like, that's going to inform it, is what are the places called?
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is looking good, though.
Yeah. We've made a lot of progress.
Yeah. And then I think we have to, like, and now that we've kind of constructed the world, the next thing is to kind of figure out the progression of the story. Right? How we're going to have, like, introduce our characters, establish our characters, we'll have our exposition, we'll build our conflict, there'll be a climax, and then a denouement.
Classic.
You know? Classic.
You really want to do it in that structure?
We could. I mean, again, if we're like that, I think let's maybe just work with that from the beginning, and then maybe if we make it less traditionally structured, less linear as we go, we can kind of break it apart. Because I think it could also be, that's kind of how we've set it up with these like two groups.
Right.
But it could also, again, just be like vignettes of like how this kind of like culture clash affects these different people. So you have like, you have the perspective of the caravan people, of the emissaries. Maybe they are religious too. Maybe they're like, you know, maybe they are followers of a new religion based on the kind of cultural memory of excess, where it's like excess and overconsumption are like so hard to come by that they're kind of like imbued with kind of like it's like viewed as like a quasi mystical state to be able to like
to be full or something.
To gorge yourself or whatever.
But I'm also like, there's no way that these people are not just evangelical Christians. Like, there's some kind of amount of like historical or cultural memory that's like gonna be.
You never know.
You know,
I mean,
you never know.
Like Muslim too.
True.
They could be anything.
But they're from the Midwest.
There's a lot of Muslims in the Midwest.
True. Okay.
We're talking about the Great Lakes.
That's okay. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of these people as being white. Definitely.
Hey, white
for
Muslim?
obvious
There we
reason.
go. Now we're getting
That's fascinating.
real
Okay.
sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are white Muslims already.
There are, but the image of a like a white Muslim Midwest, I think,
is kind of
interesting one.
cool. Yeah.
And then they could be like, you know, the Arab traders of 1,000 years ago, too, right? Who like traveled the Silk Road, like, you know.
Harken back.
Yeah.
But all to say, I think it's a cool setup to make the movie, to have like, yes, this is the arc, this is like this section, and then this section, and then have a lot of the actual dialogue like improvised. Because I'm like, literally, how much are we writing this movie?
Yeah.
Like word for word, and I feel like we don't have to. Just like the way it's starting to look is that you say you have a conflict. This is who you are. You know?
Well, we're you know, again, I was never really under the impression that we were gonna write a 120-page script in 4 weeks.
Me neither.
But an outline, I think, is definitely that's what we're working on.
You can make a score, basically.
Yeah. Well, you know, just kind of like the broad strokes of the story, and we get all the beats, right? And we kind of outline what's gonna happen, and we outline our characters, and outline.
And you get more and more details.
Yeah,
Closer. Yeah.
And if we can come up with a beginning, a middle, and an end, you know, that's
all you want.
That's our goal. Yeah. Cool. How are we doing? We've got maybe a new religion going on.
Right.
Like, because again, it could be a thing where it could be totally syncretic too, right? It could be like.
I expect it to be.
Just a total mishmash.
Or,
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I guess if it's recent enough that there's people that are alive from the pre-collapse.
That's the reason. Yeah, it's because there's no way that their memories are just gonna like go out the window.
Yeah.
When this crazy shit happens. Yeah.
Although, again, it could be a thing where it's like the decade, the post-collapse decade was like basically when the world was rewritten, pretty much, because it was so chaotic, and there was such a degree of suffering and struggle.
That people are like, my touchstones are no longer
exactly.
relevant.
It kind of like shattered everyone's
whatever
idea of the world.
Reach for.
And it had to be rebuilt kind of in the ashes of that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what
Which
we're
means that
working
these
with.
people are really, really tenacious. If they're we really want this to.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of their worldview, if they're like, we want this to keep working, it's kind of like the ultimate like beating your head against a wall. Way to be. Yeah.
Well, and that could be if again, and also you have some sort of like, you know, syncretic new cult like religion, and it could also be that maybe everyone there is just, you know, a Baptist or something, or, you know, a Lutheran, but the emissaries, the caravan, are part of some like new syncretic cult, and that's why they're kind of their religious fervor drives them to go out and look for things that aren't available.
Right.
Look for basically foodstuffs that aren't available here. Right. So it's like.
And that's why everybody's like, oh, they're crazy.
Yeah.
You know.
So we have.
Yeah.
Caravan driven by religious fervor for flavors. I don't know.
Fervor for flavor.
That's probably not how you spell it.
I think it is. Can you put syncretic somewhere? Just so I don't forget it.
It's a good word.
I do like that.
Syncretic faith system.
And I mean, thinking about magic, too, and religion, like if people are remembering technology, if that's a lot of what they've lost, that's an especially... Like in the way that we're like, oh, what if, you know, you can like feel the ghosts or whatever. They're like, what if the computer turns on again? It becomes mystical in the same way that, you know, you could think there might be fairies out there.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, true.
Right? Maybe there's a working computer.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a...
Yeah,
you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a classic quote that's like, I can't remember who it's by. You know, some famous old dude, but that, you know, sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right?
Yeah.
So maybe,
especially in sci-fi, that means you don't have to explain it.
yes.
Yeah.
But it is also true.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
how does a microprocessor work? Like,
I don't
you
know.
There's probably like very few people in the world who could actually, in detail, explain that to you and
Right.
then recreate that, right?
And make it with their bare hands. That's also the important thing for this world, is that nobody can do that.
Yeah.
Because,
so maybe there is some. Yeah. Okay. So maybe we have kind of parallel emergence of new religions in these two societies.
Right.
In the lake world, we have our new religion based on the memory of overconsumption.
Uh-huh.
And then on the coast world, we have the new religion based on the memory of technology.
Right.
And kind of the magic potential of technology.
Yeah.
And basically, the people are like, well, our lives are so shitty and so deprived, and we have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And why was the old world different? It was because of these magic machines that now we have
That
no
could
way
help
of
us so
understanding.
much, right?
But maybe
And
there
we-
is, maybe
yeah.
there is like something that miraculously still works. You know, maybe there was,
Right.
maybe there was some sort of like, maybe there's like a. Yeah, so let's put that down. And maybe somewhere in the coastal world there was like a super psycho prepper
Right.
guy
right.
who built
Oh, there's gonna be those.
apocalypse-proof underground bunker that's now become kind of like a religious site because it's the only place
Yeah.
where technology still exists in this world. So I'll put that future-proofed bunker. Let's put that over here.
He would be quite a character.
Well, he might be long dead too, but it's just
Oh,
like
actually, right.
future-proof. Or wait, not future-proof.
That is kind of that's a great concept, though.
Apocalypse
proof. Can something be future proof? Oh.
Maybe that is the right term. I don't know. Where technology still works. Is now a religious site. Coast world.
What? Post world?
Coast world.
Coast in the coast world, right?
Yeah.
Specifically. Sweet.
Yeah. All right. All right.
Okay.
So we're starting to. I think we're
What's
starting to
happening?
get a picture.
Yeah.
Of this world a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Scary.
So then, what is the conflict going to be here? 'Cause
You mean
obviously
like
we have
after they
culture
arrive?
clash, but then there
Yeah.
has to be, I think, interpersonal conflict. Obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe they actually have a surprisingly peaceful encounter of these two societies.
Right.
And then one of the monks, one of the caravan people is like winds up dead, washes
And they're
up
like,
on the shore.
"What
or
happened?"
something. Yeah, they're drowned.
I feel like
And then it's the conflict
Yeah.
that arises there, and it's like,
Okay.
I mean that's like a very kind of basic sequence, but of course, then you just have the mystery of that
Right.
kind of like ruins kind of the chances, or like heightens the diplomatic tensions between the two societies, and
Yeah.
then also starts to tear apart the coastal society because some people are really into the idea of this new world.
Right.
Some people are very into the idea of the lake world. Some people are very
Right.
against it, and the tensions arise there where you have the pro group who's like, who could do such a thing? These people are trying to, deliver us from our lives of constant suffering, and then the anti who are like, these people are charlatans, they're
Right, right.
heretics.
right.
I'm glad they died, but I also didn't do it.
Or is it that one of the coastal people is killed, and then that means something different? But I
Could
like
be.
that. I like that
Could
tone
be.
of it being like, it's actually just a murder mystery,
Yeah.
but it's set in this psychotic situation.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
feels like sort of more classic.
Yeah, well, the conflicts,
like Twin Peaks or something. You know,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
that
the
would
conflicts
be great.
will always be. I mean, you know, human conflict, I think, is not gonna like the ways that human conflicts kind of take shape and play out.
There's only so many.
There's only so
right.
many. It's
but
not gonna
but
radically
it's, you know,
change,
but
even
it's
if society radically changes.
right, and that's the
The
message
same problems
of
are
the,
always
of the
there.
story, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah, but you know, there's a difference between it being like it's a dystopia versus like not that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it'd be fun if it wasn't.
Well, let's do then. I think there has to be Salt World is split in their opinion. In their opinion of the new arrivals, I guess. In their opinions.
Yeah.
On the arrival of the caravan.
And I think it also matters what the caravan is like asking of them. Are they like, we want to bring you back with us? We want you to come live with us in our world, and like, we're saving you right now? Or the understanding is that they're all going to stay where they live.
Yeah, well, that
and
could
just
be the
get
thing
their
too,
salt.
where they have kind of the caravan people have kind of an evangelical outlook where they're like,
right. That's right.
Now that we see, you know, look, our society is so much better. We want to show you the light.
Right. Yeah.
Come with us, and then that's kind of what makes a rift in the coastal society, is that they're like, some people are like, this is great, like.
Right.
Even if they're lying, even if they're going to kill us, even if this is all false, like, we should take a chance on it. And then there's the people who are like, look, we've managed to kind of like scrape out this existence. We finally kind of found a balance.
Yeah.
You know, after so much suffering, we've managed to kind of make a sustainable society, and you just want to throw that all away. Like, you just,
what the fuck?
And it could also be like, you know, if half of the population leaves, then this world is going to collapse.
Right,
too.
right. Because they need all
Because
the
it's
workers to be doing it such a tenuous balance. They need everybody. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I think then, the possibility of, so emigration could lead to collapse.
Right.
Yeah.
There's also something in that too. I think that there would be an interesting tone in it, as like, this is, maybe the coast people feel that it is a utopia because they've left consumerism behind, and it's like a deliberate like, imagine the sadness of like, oh, our commune is failing. Like, we did this experiment, we tried to have like a radical new structure, and it didn't work. And like, that would be, I don't know, that's an interesting tone to me, to be like, oh, my non-binary farm failed. Boo-hoo. Okay.
And then also, I think we do have to keep coming back to the idea that the stuff, again, like salt, that has no value at all in the coastal world, is incredibly valuable in the lake world.
Yes.
Yeah. And that
Maintain
is kind
that.
of, you know, the motivation. And that could also be where suddenly this kind of like very, like, I don't know, post-transactional, post-consumer, post-currency, post all of that world, suddenly has the idea of currency reintroduced.
Right.
And suddenly they're
That's
like,
the whole
oh,
thing.
wait, like
Right.
we've been in kind of this like
Yeah.
forced communitarianism where society is solely organized around kind of like work and production and like being able to provide for the society, because it's like that's all they can do.
Right.
Is like focus on, you know, keeping the society alive. And suddenly the idea of kind of like abstract value is reintroduced rather than totally concrete value of like, do we have enough food to feed everyone? Suddenly the idea of abstract value of like a currency comes back.
On top of them suddenly maybe not having enough food to feed everybody. Because if their society is also failing anyway, and they're like, people are still holding on to it, being like, no, this is the way it works now because we figured out how to do this. Like,
And then suddenly
That's
it could be
crazier.
like there
Yeah.
could be the people in the coast who are who still have those old instincts, who are like, oh,
Right.
I could be rich.
Exactly.
I
And
could
that's
be
yeah.
And that ultimately,
Yeah.
I think it should just be about. I think we're onto into a good place where kind of
Yeah.
the reintroduction of kind of post-collapse ideas of value tear the society apart.
Which is, yeah, because I mean, it's amazing to try to do the pre-step of that too, to be like, what is after capitalism? You know, I don't know if we can even show how their world works fully,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's fun to imagine
Yeah.
how they get drawn back in. I guess my question is that in the old world, the reason they're leaving is because they've finally run out of resources. They're like, because they have to also be collapsing.
Yeah, maybe
I feel like it's not just a fringe religious group. It's like they
Yeah.
also really are losing it over there too. So
Yeah.
that's the driving force.
cool.
Nice. That's important. Yeah.
There you go.
Ta-da!
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
This is looking good.
It is.
I want to take a step back and
Observe.
look at our work. Wow, look at that. Damn. Very dramatic looking.
A
Yeah.
real plot.
Yeah.
Spider plot. So next
I'm
time,
just gonna zoom around a little bit and pan.
yeah. You want to do next time? What is the actual plot?
Yeah.
What is
We're
the
next-
arc? What is
We've got our world.
yeah.
Salt. We've got our salt world and our lake world, and next time we're actually going to start putting the plot together, and we'll have our characters, we'll have our conflicts.
Kelp.
Yeah. Salt garbage man. I like that.
What was
Yeah.
the movie? Were you telling me about the Space Garbage Men? What is that?
Oh, that's an anime.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
it's
I
called
want to see
Planets.
that. Planets.
Planetes.
Ah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a slice of life of just like space garbage men.
I was thinking about that, even though I haven't seen
It's
that
good.
movie. Yeah.
It's good. I mean, I've never actually seen the anime, but I've read the comic a long time ago, and it's cool. The art is phenomenal,
Nice.
and it's also great because it is kind of the space sci-fi I like, where it's just like, it's not like the flashy, perfect Star Trek
Right.
space travel. It's like busted space travel. It's like barely working spaceship.
It's
that you're just,
leaking
like,
in.
Yeah, you can like barely keep it, flying basically,
Excellent.
barely keep gas in the tank. Full of problems, but also very lived in and human feeling,
Right. Which I feel like this world will have
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
necessity. Okay.
How are you feeling?
Confident in our movie. I'm excited about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
It's going to be good. Oh.
Oh Lord. Bound to happen. Are we still on?
I think we're back now.
Cool.
Let's see. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Do you have to go to work?
I should. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm happy with this.
That's it.
Dee-dee-dee.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks for watching
We'll be back next week. Keep writing this movie.
on Writer's Room.